Welcome, everyone, to Sideline Pass Video with your host, Mia Jackson. And we're thrilled today to speak with ESPN analyst and three-time NASCAR champ, Ray Evernham. How are you today, Mr. Evernham?
I'm doing great, Mia. Thank you for having us on.
That's great. You've got a new program coming out, and it's about to hit velocity, and we're really excited about it. It's called Americarna. It's set to premiere on the 28th at 8 p.m. Can you tell us a little bit about what we can expect in that show?
Yeah, Americarna, I'm as passionate about this show as anything I've ever done. My whole life I've been in love with cars, and because of my racing background, I've been able to travel around America and get behind the scenes to some incredible cars and extraordinary people and hear their stories about how much the automobile has affected the culture of America. So Americarna is really documenting the timeline of America through the headlights of the automobile. And we've been able to just meet some really neat people and tell some great stories. You'll see stories about moonshiners out here on the East Coast in the 1940 Ford, all the way to woody wagons and the surf culture of the 1960s in California. And how up in the early 1900s, William K. Vanderbilt brought huge competition to Long Island, and because of automobiles, the infrastructure, including the Long Island Parkway, was developed. And then as far down south, we've gone to Nashville and found a car that the country singer Marty Robbins drove at Nashville Speedway. And we had other country stars like Brad Paisley and Charlie Daniels come in and help us explain exactly a little bit about Marty's career. So really excited about this show.
That's awesome, especially when you're mentioning great music like that. I love country music. Grew up in Louisiana, so that's all we think. But I moved to California, and we lived in a really small town called Paso Robles, and they have a car and cruise festival there every year during Labor Day. Did you hit any little spots like Paso Robles?
We haven't, but we were out Capistrano Beach. We've been in Vista, up and down. We travel out to the West Coast because that really is a hotbed of automobilia, if you will. When you have a show out on the West Coast, there could be thousands of cars show up with tens of thousands of people, and it just goes to show how much the automobile means to people. And when you look at Americarna, we like to look at it as a scrapbook of American history. And if you looked in your family scrapbook, you'd probably see where cars were the backdrop for key moments in your life, whether that's weddings or graduations. And cars, as a teenager, it was our freedom, and each car is personal. And trying to tell some of those stories from blue-collar, real hard-working Americans versus some of our hard-working superstars. When we had Ron Howard on the show, a guy that was starred in the movie American Graffiti, one of the best car culture movies ever, and now has made a racing movie called Rush. We talked about how Steve McQueen and Paul Newman, James Garner, some of the big Hollywood stars, were really just in love with racing and cars.
That's great. Was there one story in particular that just stuck with you as just a pure example of what this means?
Well, the story that actually interested me the most was a story that happened right in my own backyard. I was born in New Jersey, and for years I did not know that the Vanderbilt Cup, the first circuit built to race cars on, was built right in Long Island by William K. Vanderbilt, and it was a challenge for the American car manufacturers to go against the foreign car manufacturers at that time, and really helped the industrialization of America. That people like Henry Ford, Louis Chevrolet, Walter P. Chrysler, all these people were involved in this event, and just that single event, the Vanderbilt Cup, not only laid out a lot of the infrastructure for the cities, for the streets, the roads of Long Island, but it really helped industrialize America because it gave some credibility to the American car manufacturer, and this race race was run years before the Indy 500. So that story was, I found, a very interesting one.
That's great. The economy and the growth of the country and the development of cars, as we all know, are just inextricably linked. And so it's great that you'll be telling those stories for us. A little random question. Did you run across any women car owners along the way?
Absolutely. You know, that's what's really cool about the Americarna show. It's not a standard hardcore restoration show. There are a lot of ladies across America that love their cars, including my wife, who happens to be a professional race car driver. But, you know, that's Americarna with that story. You know, your first car and your first date, you know, for some people, you know, we found a couple who on their honeymoon went to the racetrack and decided they wanted to build a race car together, and they kept it all these years. This couple has been married for over 50 years and still had that first race car that they built together.
And there's definitely something special about that. You've mentioned that this has been a lifelong passion of yours, and I have a young nephew who is right now, as my grandmother says, taking over everyone's garage with all of his car parts, and he just loves it. How did that play out for you when you were young, and how did you develop your skills as a crew chief and then an owner, and now as an analyst, and also extending now as an owner, in this venture here?
Well, when I look back as a child, I really never had an interest in much else. I just always loved the cars. So as soon as I could get from a go-kart to junk cars, probably my mom and dad were not too happy because I used to take stuff apart all the time in the driveway. Some of it ran, some of it didn't, and built race cars, built a lot of hot rods and things like that, raced at the local short tracks, and was fortunate enough to be able to make a living doing what I love the most, cars. And even though my living was racing, I've always had a passion for all kinds of cars. I love race cars, but I also love classic cars, hot rods, muscle cars, really just about any type of vehicle. It still excites me. I always tell everybody that, you know, I loved cars so much, you know, back when I was a kid, I thought chrome was a color. You know, there's just something about any kind of automobile. I love the, you know, again, from the hot rods to the complete Art Deco cars. I find race cars and street cars, just the engineering that goes into them and the reason that they end up being the way that they are, and how important some of these cars have been to people. We've met families that have passed down a car through generations, from grandfather to father to now to son. So I don't think I'm the only one in America with a passion this huge for an automobile, and I think that's why Americarna will be a great show for anybody who really likes cars, and that's male, female, young, old, whoever.
Definitely. And I know that cars tell so much of the story for families, especially families. If you think about the migration of families from the south to the north, and my uncle moving to work in Michigan and the car factories, they're so linked to our family history. So it's great to see that, and it'll be great to see it on screen. Before we let you get out of here, because we know you're busy, want to hear a little bit more about your Family Racing for a Reason Foundation. Can you tell us about some of the charities that you work with there and how you're using cars there?
Well, Evernham Family Racing for a Reason is an organization that was started in honor of my son. My son is a leukemia survivor, and he's also a person who is on the autism spectrum. And we try and raise money. One of the things that we did was called Americarna Live. It was a car show to raise money for a clubhouse that we started in Davidson, North Carolina, called Ignite, that helps place young adults with Asperger's and autism, who helps place them in the community with jobs and whatnot. And I will tell you that you won't find a more generous group of people than car people.
And once again, we'd like to say thank you to NASCAR champion Ray Evernham for joining us. Be sure to check out Americarna tonight That's January 28th, 8 p.m., only on Velocity. And make sure you check us out on SidelinePass.com. I am Mia Jackson. Thank you for joining us, and also follow us on Facebook. Don't forget, at Sideline Pass, at Twitter too. So take care, have a great day, and enjoy those cars.